all set.
Great. Thanks, Rob. Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the meeting to order. Before we start with the consent agenda, I know that Bob, Dr. Shaps, you had a couple of words you wanted to say to the community.
Yes, thank you. As we begin this evening and are about to receive an update from members of the district equity team, I want to start by acknowledging an incident that happened last week at Homix Middle School. During a 6th grade Zoom class, we had the unfortunate situation of a Zoom bombing scenario where racial epithets were used. This incident simply underscores the importance of the anti-racist work we are prioritizing in our district. We're committed to working our hardest to fight racism in any form, standing up to racist behavior at all times, and teaching our students to do the same. Our administrators, faculty, and staff are taking every action they can to make it clear to students that this kind of behavior will never be tolerated, and that is a violation not only to another individual, but to our entire community. We're working with law enforcement to pursue the individual responsible for this heinous act, and will do everything possible to hold this individual legally accountable with appropriate consequences, whether they reside across the globe or within our community. With respect to protecting children and the safe use of technology, we've directed all teachers to fully implement Zoom safety protocols to ensure that authentication of students and a process for delaying entry tied to verification of student identity will remain a closed classroom and limit the potential for any malicious activity by any unidentified individual. And we will continue to ensure that all of our staff members follow the safety protocols each day as we conduct hundreds of Zoom classrooms and try to protect children from any kind of racist incidents or violence. And so with that, I turn back to you, Rena.
Thank you for that, Bob. The board stands with you in that statement, of course. Items to be removed from consent agenda. If a board member wishes to remove an item on the consent agenda for further discussion, a motion to remove item from the consent agenda must be made. However, once a motion and second are made for the consent agenda items listed below, simple questions can be asked regarding any of them as you would normally do for individual resolutions. Consent agenda. A, approval of minutes of the 1/26/21 business meeting and the 2/21/21 and 2/3/21 special meeting. B, approval of personnel actions. C, approval of vendor agreements and amendments. D, award of contract. E, approval of budget transfer. F, acceptance of arrangements for appropriate special programs and services as recommended by the CSE, CPSE. G, acceptance of gifts and donations. Can I have a motion?
So moved. Paul.
Second?
Second, Ariana.
Great. We have a couple of items here. Does the board, any board members have any questions on any of these items? Ariana, I think you had a question on actually, no, I take that back. It's not in this section. Okay. Paul, do you want to read the gifts and donations?
Absolutely. Thank you, Rena. Let's see. Various items for the Homix Middle School from the Homix PTA valued at $409. Various items for Murray Avenue School from the Murray Avenue PTA valued at $5,900.84. $50,000 from North 6 Group LLC for the Lauren Nicole Rosetta Fund, and a garden build out from the Chatsworth Avenue PTA for the Chatsworth Avenue School Playground valued at $51,460. Thank you so much for those very generous donations.
Thanks, Paul. All in favor of the consent agenda items?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving to item 4A, resolution to enter into a purchase contract with 71 Visuals to provide student desk shields. Whereas the Mamaroneck Union Free School District desires to provide a safe and healthy in-school education to district students during the COVID-19 pandemic in accordance with the New York State Department of Health and New York State Education departmental guidelines and requirements. And whereas the district is going to increase the number of students in the classroom for in-school education and has researched and determined that desk shields are necessary to maintain the safety of the district students in accordance with the New York State Department of Health and New York State Education departmental guidelines and requirements for social distancing due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas the district administration has researched the best possible solution and resource for sturdy, good quality desk shields and meet in form and function the needs of the district, and has identified 71 visuals as the manufacturer that can provide the shields in a timely manner and at the best value to the district. And whereas in accordance with the provisions, of General Municipal Law 103, subsection 4, the Mamaroneck Union Free School District Board of Education hereby finds and determines that a public emergency exists with respect to the COVID-19 pandemic, and that it is necessary to protect the health and safety of its students, staff, and anyone who will be occupying any of the buildings, and therefore each procurement cannot await competitive bidding. Therefore, be it resolved that the Mamaroneck Union Free School District Board of Education authorizes the superintendent of schools to enter into a purchase contract with 71 visuals to provide student desk shields in accordance with the attached price quote for the 2020-21 school year, and approves and ratifies this resolution. Can I have a motion?
So moved, Paul.
Second?
Second, Ariana. And yeah, this was my question.
Go.
Sylvia, I was just curious where we netted out in terms of the final number, and also our ability for parents who have inquired about fundraising I know right now we need to order it through the district, but as we proceed, you could fill us in on that.
So the description of that budget transfer should have said desks and desk shields. That amount was for both. And as you probably know, we purchased many desks over the summer to accommodate the 50% capacity. So now we are purchasing the other 50%, but we did not purchase desk shields. So the desk shields are about $55,000 of that budget transfer. And we'd be happy to take a donation to pay for it, as you know, the PTA or the foundation or whoever provides us with other donations. It would just be an amount donated that the board would accept, and we would be happy to apply those funds to the desk shields.
Okay, so in order to accomplish that, we can, in our write-up of the meeting, we can include some information as to how individuals can donate. And I think they would be donating it to a general fund, not designated for any particular school. Is that correct?
It would not be for any particular school. We're actually not allowed to take donations that are pointed like that to a grade or a specific school, but it would just go into the fund to purchase the shield. We can call it, we can make up a name for it that is appropriate. But
Could they contribute to the desks as well, or no?
I'm sorry?
Would parents who so choose be able to contribute? I know we need to order a lot of desks as well.
Sure.
Could that be a piece of this? Do
Sure.
you have a number on that?
The desks are part of that budget transfer, and they're about $70,000. Those are the 1,100. We had ordered a similar number early on in the summer to accommodate the 50% capacity.
Okay, thanks, Sylvia. Any other
Thank you.
questions on that item from the board?
You.
Okay, all in favor?
I'm sorry, I just want to add that this provides authorization from the board to pursue this. We are trying to stay ahead of the curve in terms of planning for transitioning students back and adjusting our classrooms to meet the social distancing regulations. And so I just want to make clear that this provides that emergency authorization to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Bob. On to item 5, policies. This is a first reading of the policies. This is a first reading only. The board will have an opportunity to discuss the proposed policy in greater detail at the February 23rd, 2021 meeting. Any questions regarding these policies can be directed to members of the Board Law and Policy Committee, Dr. Shaps, myself, Rena Beater, Sam Orens, Rob Weistuck, and Joanne Rice. The policy presented for a first reading were reviewed by the district's attorney, and it is anticipated that they will be adopted at the February 23rd, 2021 meeting. A, revised policy 2160, school officer and employee code of ethics. This revised policy adds language to bring us in compliance with uniform guidance. Revised policy 6640, fixed asset accounting. And this revised policy replaces the current policy named capital assets and brings us in compliance with the uniform guidance. Now, these policies are all posted under board docs, and you can also find them in the board policy folder on the website under board. With that, I want to turn to the update and discussion from the district equity team. Before I begin, we had sent out a letter to the community. The letter that we had sent out was close to the time of this meeting. So I just want to reiterate, in case anyone has not seen it, that the district equity team presentation is an update to the board and community of their work thus far. And the discussion about neighborhood schools is a discussion that is not slated to take place this evening. And as the board has stated in the past, it will follow a process for community input and collaboration going forward. And there will be plenty of notice as to when those discussions will take place. And with that, I want to turn it over to April and Jenny Rodriguez.
So if I can just be the intermediate step to introduce, welcome back, April Francis, who is the Director
Absolutely,
of
Bob.
Diversity.
Sorry. Yep.
I'm sorry. So April, thank you for joining us this evening to participate and give an update with Jenny Rodriguez, Assistant Principal at Mamaroneck High School. I just want to remind everyone that April Francis Taylor is the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusivity for the Eastern Suffolk BOCES. And so thank you for working and continuing to help us, April, with this important work. And with that, I turn it over to April and Jenny.
Thank you, Dr. Shaps. Thank you, Mamaroneck Board of Education and the community. It's been definitely a great journey in helping, still being a part of the Mamaroneck community, even in my new role. So I'm going to share my screen, and Jenny and I are missing our third wheel. So our partner in crime, Leon, is not here tonight. He had some family emergency, so he definitely helped us with our presentation, and he is still very much part of our leadership team in helping to bring the DET together. So I'm going to give it over to Jenny to get us started.
Great. Good evening, everyone. We're excited to be able to share with you all of the hard work from the DET members. As was said, my name is Jenny Rodriguez, and I'm one of the assistant principals at the high school, but I also, alongside of with Leon White, we co-chair the district equity team. And April Francis has actually been, as an equity consultant, really guiding us through the process of how to go about creating and implementing a district equity plan. So tonight we're going to share with you, we've already shared the plan, but we're going to give you guys some updates about what we've been up to in the last couple of months.
Thanks, Jenny. So we really wanted to start, just to recenter why equity matters, right? And sometimes when we hear the term equity, oftentimes we think about equality, but we just need to really kind of back up and unpack equity. So I just want to give you an analogy. Imagine you are given a chance, to win $1 million. It's a game, and you have a ladder. They said, hey, as long as you climb this ladder and you get to the top, everyone that gets to the top will be able to achieve the award. right? And so at that point, I'm sure that all of us would feel like we are ready and that this race is fair, and that no matter what, I'll be able to achieve the same goal as the person next to me because we're starting at the same footing, right? So that's what equality imagines: an equal world, that everyone is starting at the same footing. But what if you're told that your ladder is actually 20 feet down in the ground and everyone else's ladder next to you might be a little bit higher, or given a little bit extra chance to win? And your ladder is only down there, no fault to your own, and their ladder is only a little higher, no fault to their own. It's just a situation that they were given. And that's what makes us start to think about equity, right? Because the world is not equal. And when we as young people or children are born into a family, we're born into the situation that we have, and we have to make do with that. And how do we as school systems ensure that we are supporting all students? So Jenny?
Yeah. And so, we know now there have been so many studies done out there, and we know that, many of our lower socioeconomic families do not have the means, the financial means to do all of the things necessary to climb up that ladder. The scholars, different educated parents or SAT tutors or things like that. I think now we're all in agreement, or there's enough studies out there that show that society isn't equal, and actually in some cases some of these inequities have actually been created. And so when we talk about these different barriers, we talk a lot about biases and systemic racism, and we talk about things like microaggressions and implicit bias, just more basically marginalized groups. But one of the things that we wanted to even highlight, that we thought about as doing this presentation last week, it was shared the number of times that schools had to go remote due to the pandemic. And, as we saw, MAS actually was closed for something like 21 times. And so, we see these disparities and these discrepancies and these differences, even just within our own district through this pandemic, and sort of how some of our students have been impacted. And so it's important to look, through our own lens as a district as well.
And we have to think about how are we helping and being that coach to all of our students. And if our students, if the ladder is broken and they need those extra supports, what are we doing to help create equitable and fair outcomes? So when we talk about equitable outcomes, we're talking about referring to the concept that a district's goals should apply to all students. The means to these goals will vary as those students themselves vary. It means creating resources to meet the needs of all learners. And what does that look like in hybrid and remote and COVID times, right? And how are we supporting all of our students to be able to be successful and give them those fair outcomes? And that's where the district equity team comes in, right? As you can see in this ladder, you're doing inquiry to understand, the areas of where equity is impeded, right? Faculty and staff training to be equity facilitators, goal setting and action planning, and regular data disaggregation and analysis. And that is what the main goal of the district equity team is to do. So just to give a little background, I think we shared this back in September when we first gave an update. To be able to be equity facilitators, we really have to start building our racial literacy, right? We have to understand the various students in front of us, the histories, the systems that have placed us in the situations that we're in, and think about how we then can begin to look at those systems and shift them and reimagine them for better, and so that our schools are doing better and that our kids are really doing better and feeling welcomed and affirmed in their environments. Doing some, once again, doing some backup as to how we got here. Workshops on understanding culture, identity, and bias. I know when I first was introduced to the district, I was actually working at PNW BOCES as a social studies regional professional developer. And This was around the time when the culturally responsive framework was being developed. It wasn't out yet. And I was asked to come to the district to do some professional development with administrators, with some of the core middle school and high school social studies and ELA teachers, as well as we held a parent forum, and also working with the fifth grade elementary teachers on their social studies strategies on teaching hard history. So we were having these conversations in that way. And I know that Jenny can add on to that too.
Yeah, very similarly, we've been having some of these conversations in the high school as well, and have for the last probably 4 years or so started to do this work. Most recently, our entire faculty took part in book clubs, but but even before that, we have been working with Facing History for probably about 15 years. And in the last couple of years, have really shifted the focus to also social studies and English, to develop some units that would help our 9th grade students address some of these issues of identity and bias.
Thank you, Jenny. And I don't know, Annie, is there anything you would like to add in about this piece?
No, I think you've both covered it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So that brings us to the district equity team and the plan. Just to have, to go over a couple of the terms that are important to this discussion. So Jenny, I'll click through each one. I'll start with the first one.
Sure. So actually, I'm not going to read through every line. I'm just going to kind of summarize. But one of the terms that you'll see often is equity. And often, people misconstrue the word equity. Equity is not a zero-sum game. So it's not, we're going to take away from somebody to give to somebody else. The idea is to have equal footing and to give everybody what they actually need. So diversity, again, diversity, you'll see it throughout the plan, and it's really a continuum of how we identify. It's not one bucket or one thing specific, but it's the idea of looking at individuals and being multifaceted and different dimensions to one's personality. Okay, did you go on to? Yep. The term anti-racism, I think that, again, it's a term that some people, it makes them cringe a little bit, but it's the idea of working towards cultural pluralism, right? So it's the idea of not just accepting that there's one dominant culture that everybody must assimilate to, but understanding that we could actually all coexist or work together with the different cultures. We don't have to limit ourselves to one dominant culture.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. And so, as Jenny mentioned, those are some terms you'll see throughout. And we just wanted to bring it back to the foundation of how we began doing this work and building the equity plan. We utilized the New York State Culturally Responsive and Sustaining Education Framework. It has 4 principles, and on the original plan on the website, you can see with a better picture of the framework. But the 4 principles are welcoming and affirming environment. That's principle number 1. Principle number 2 is high expectations, having high expectations and rigorous instructions. Principle 3 is inclusive curriculum and assessment, and principle 4 is ongoing professional learning and support. So as you can see with this diagram, it's all about the students, and these branches are all the stakeholders, which are the folks in this room and the folks out, watching today, are there to help all of our students feel connected to these 4 areas. And so our equity team plan, or the equity plan, actually aligns with those principles. So priority area 1 connects well with principle 3 and 4. Priority area 2 connects well with principle 2, and priority area 3 connects well with principle 3. So a lot of the language that you see within the district equity plan is directly coming from the framework, and then being connected or being adapted to fit the needs of the Mamaroneck School District. So just the process to develop the action-oriented and sustaining equity team, right? We kind of talked about the history of the learning that we did the spring and fall of 2019. We talked about developing understandings around the 4 principles with various faculty members and administrators. Around December 2019, it began as a committee, the PATH committee, which had existed in the district for a number of years, reconvened in December to talk about shifting their goals and their purpose. And that's where the district equity team was developed. And there was already a number of staff members and some community groups that were part of the PATH. So when they shifted, around February, there was a meeting to welcome new members to the district equity team. It was held as an informational and preparation session. And then there were meetings that were supposed to subsequently happen, but due to the pandemic, everything was paused, as we know, right? And then we eventually, once we, were able to handle the pandemic and understand that there were things that we still needed to do around June, we reconvened at the end of June into July. Staff members took their, came on their summer days, and we did some more professional development. We started looking at strategic planning. We looked at the framework, and we began creating priority areas, a mission statement, and some goals that we felt would be helpful in helping the district, well, it was our district at the time, I still was there, move forward in creating an equity plan to support our students. And then in September, between September and November, right, we did the formal presentation at the board meeting, I believe it was at the end of September, and held community forums. We held those forums for our parents and families. We held a forum for alumni. We held a forum for our Spanish-speaking families only. We held a forum for students. We held one for teachers. So there were various forums that were held. And through those forums, we also had a survey that went out. And it was suggested that, we definitely needed to add some community members and advocates to the group. So we created a way to vet, a system to invite, and we vetted and used a rubric to select folks to join the district equity team. And by December, we had our first district equity team that included our new community members, which were about, I think it's about 28 folks added. And between December and February, the main job of this new fully developed district equity team was to review the community feedback from the survey, also give their own input, and participate in consensus decision-making on adopting and updating the plan as it was. So we utilized that feedback to then update the plan, which is the plan that you now see on the website. Jenny?
Yep. So we always like to start with the mission statement. The mission of Mamaroneck District Equity Team is to identify, acknowledge, and dismantle the systemic barriers that prevent equity and access for all students by creating and implementing a sustainable plan for equitable opportunities and outcomes for all. And as we started our work, we landed on 3 priority areas, and they are adopted from the New York State Culturally Responsive Sustaining Educational Framework. The first is developing inclusive and anti-racist curriculum, instruction, and assessment K-12, strengthening and creating opportunities, access, and educational quality for all students in our diverse community, and prioritizing student and community input to dismantle inequitable policies and reframing from equity. And again, the plan is posted, but we just wanted to show you a sample of what we did for each priority area. So for each priority area, we came up with a set of goals. And so I'm not going to read them, but I just wanted to show you this example of, for this particular priority area, there were 6 goals that we felt were important to guide our work.
And we also, just to piggyback off of what Jenny shared, as you can see at the top, it tells you what specific pages in the framework that is research-based and is created by the state that you can go to see the correlation of how they connect. Another piece, as in and having any plan that's going to be effective, is having a strategy, work, and action plan, right? So we talked about strategic planning, and a major part of strategic planning is creating creating SMART goals and a specific timeline that will allow you to say, you know, we're doing the work. When's your check-in? How do you know that you're moving forward? Do you need to revamp? So that is also what you're going to see online, is the strategic plan for the first year, which was paused so that we can add community members, and it is shared for January of this year until June of this school year. So just a visual of the configuration of the district equity team. Jen, you want to talk to this?
Yes. So, okay. So we just wanted to just again remind you all of our effort to make sure that we had the different voices. So as part of the district equity team, we have family and community members. We have students that are a part of it. We have faculty members that are a part of the team as well. And what we are starting to develop is also school building equity teams, because we want to make sure that everyone's voice is heard. So currently, we have at least one teacher and administrator from each building. We have 3 to 4 community organizations and alumni, and actually we have a few more. We have an updated number of those, and we have parent representatives as well. Yep, this is the one. We actually have increased the number of parent representatives of community organizations. So we have approximately 8 community organizations, and they're listed there. We have 3 alumni, 34 staff, faculty, and Board of Ed liaisons, student representatives. And so it's quite a large group. So our task has been to sort of, design a process and a working group so that all 64 stakeholders feel like they have input. We also wanted to talk about the fact that, we want to reiterate that the DET plan is actually a multi-year work plan. And it can be updated. It's a living document. It can be updated and amended as needed.
And the selected goals for year 1, as I stated before, is for January of this year to June of this year, are posted on the district website. And the work plan for year 2 will be released on and around July 2021. And just to share some of the updates that, based on the December and January group feedbacks, the updates we made to the plan was, 1, to have explicit reference to race and ethnic-based anti-bullying policy in the update of the district code of conduct. 2, include an external equity auditor in the district equity plan to conduct a needs assessment survey and provide guidance for next steps in our equity work. 3, as the board has already reiterated and shared, revisiting the enrollment task force findings for further board and community discussions, which will be something that happens down the line, nothing that's happening right now. And 4, we revised the year 1 work plan, because as I shared before, we paused it to ensure that we added these other voices to our team.
And I just want to reiterate 2 points. One, as a district equity team, we don't have the authority to have any decision-making power in terms of enrollment. And I just want to reiterate that. So it will defer back to the board and the community to have those discussions. And the other thing that I wanted to also reiterate, as we talk about the year 1 plan and the things that we decided on, we decided on things that we felt we were able to accomplish in these next few months. It's difficult work. We feel that every part of this plan is important, but we wanted to make sure that we jumped right in and that we could get a few things accomplished this year.
Thanks, Jenny. So some next steps that we thought were very important was to continue the learning so that we can continue to grow on that continuum of equity and knowledge, right? So we are offering a workshop for our Board of Education, PT Council, and the District Equity team members on March 11th. The topic is developing an equity lens to impact our school system. So that one is targeted and looking at as a leadership group, how can we begin to use that lens. And then for the community and staff members who are interested, we are going to be offering a workshop titled Understanding Bias, Microaggressions, Their Impacts, and How to Combat Them. And that's going to be on March 25th. And we're working on a Spanish-speaking only workshop of that topic as well. Jenny, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think you covered it, April.
Okay. So that is our presentation tonight, and we appreciate the time that you all gave us to present this again.
April and Jenny, thank you. And, please convey our thanks to Leon and wish him well. This really is incredible work that you've done, and you've done it during a time with dedicated staff and community members. But, this was really a lot of the heart and soul of our staff, and listening to your experiences and what you see each and every day in the school. And that is extraordinarily powerful. And I'm glad we're having the other two meetings so that we do have an opportunity to learn and listen more. And excuse me, I really do look forward to hearing some of the student voices and what they have to say, which is incorporated into your work plan for 2021. So, I just want to really convey my sincere thanks. And I know the board feels similarly, and we'll probably weigh in. I do have a couple of questions. One question is a little bit more general. I just want to understand some of this work that's recommended in the report builds on work. It seems it builds on work. Well, let me phrase the question differently. Does it build on work that has already taken place in the district in the area of curriculum? So in other words, is this brand new and it's going to be, a real 180 from what currently occurs? Or is this really growing and modifying and emphasizing different aspects? And maybe
I think it's the latter.
You'd also weigh in too. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's the latter. We have started this work, and we gave examples of just facing history that we've worked with, work we've done with our faculty,
right,
work that April's done with the elementary school. What we hope this document does is give us that unifying force so that we can tackle certain things K-12 and really push forward and make sure that we have a continuum happening.
Great, thank you. Does anybody on the board have any questions regarding what was presented?
I just want to echo the thank you for the amazing work. And, as I read through the plan, I feel, so excited about sort of, to your point, Jenny, of that building on the end of the curriculum piece. I feel so excited that, generations of kids to come will get sort of this continuum of really important learning, because that's really where it's at. So thank you so much for this really thoughtful, full document, and then tonight's abbreviated presentation of it. But everyone should really dive in because it's all very worthwhile.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just, go ahead, Gladys, go ahead.
But before the question, since I'm not the DET member, I had the opportunity to really experience how profound and passionate is the work that the district is doing, to see all that discussions in the subgroups and working in the Google Docs and changing that word. No, that mean this like the involvement and how everybody really cares about this work. I really get like a good response since I put it today in an email. I feel honored because I learned a lot. I care a lot about this equity. So to have the opportunity to share with a select group, the community, the administration, that they really care is like, it's a gift for me and I think for the community. Since I joined the board, I've been almost 3 years, I've been listening about diversity. That's one when the amazing April joined the district. Thank you very much. I had the opportunity also to join in the 2019 summer, a great workshop. It's called Courageous Conversations. That was amazing. I think that the workshop touched everybody. And the reason I mentioned this is because for the people that listen tonight, don't think that the DET or the work that we start doing about equity just starting after George Floyd. That's a work they've been doing even a year before. Even Dr. Chaps and Pat's, a year before, he was suggesting we need to create this equity team, even before it was happening last year. So I'm proud that we are doing it and so happy. And I missed one of the discussion, and this is my question about the external auditor for the DET. I just picture like there is 62 people join the equity team, 8 organizations. We have 2 advisories. We have the great consultant, and everybody there cares so much about equity. So I was thinking, why at this point we need an auditor? I feel like me, myself, and the 62 that are members of the DET, we are the auditors. We need to follow if these goals or these priorities are being achieved, if we know why. And I think that plays the equity team in a way like to start from the deficit. I think that we need to start from the confidence for this great work, from the generosity. Like, I don't think that nobody cares less for the equity team. These 62 people there, the organizations and the meeting, they're more than the auditors. So I was thinking why we need to pay somebody external if we care so much. So I don't know, it's just an idea that I don't think that this point is necessary. Perhaps in 2 years, and this is a multi-year plan, maybe in 2 years, we get somebody to point out what we're missing, that we're not seeing it. But now my invitation is just to go with all this willingness and passion that we have and do the best that we can. We are doing it. I can tell that we are doing it. And if we have like a extra money in the budget, okay, let's get an auditors, maybe 2 or 3 if it's possible. But now I think that the big part of the resources that we have, especially after pandemic, the achievement gap, it got bigger. So I think that the resources really, really needs to be focused on the students of color, how we can help them, and then the students with lower economic situation. So knowing extra things, we have a lot. The ability or the capacity that you see in those meetings is amazing. We have great people in the community, great people in the district. They are way and beyond. They can really help us to do this job better. So that's just my suggestion, my point of view. I'm sorry I missed the meeting. So I was feeling like maybe I missed an amazing discussion and I'm giving my opinion, like our context. but it's just my opinion. And thank you very much for the amazing, amazing work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gladys.
I'll be brief. I just, once again, Jay and April, thank you so much. And thank you to Leon and everyone on the DE team. It's so much appreciated. I think that one of the most important things you guys talked about was the fact this is going to be a living document. Too many times I've seen plans that have collected dust after a year and that nothing's changed. Things aren't adapted to present situations. So it's so important that you mentioned that, and it's so important that the community and that the entire district knows that this is going to be a document that's going to change as the times change, and that's super, super important. And I just can't thank you guys enough for the amount of work you've put into this. This is the heart and soul that you put into this. I know how much, how important this work is and how much it means to the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Any other board members? I just want to respond to one thing that Gladys said. In terms of an equity audit, one of the things that the board does each year in reviewing the budget when we're talking about new programs, initiatives, consultants, is we do approve and discuss those items when it comes down to our budgetary process. That is essentially how this board and boards in the past have decided to proceed. I do have a brief statement that I want to read after all board members have had a chance, or any board members who wish to say anything can. And this is it's a statement that was written jointly. Gladys DeVito, I want to thank you for your work on this statement as well, and collaboration, with all of our board members. Are there any other questions, comments?
Yeah.
Yeah.
April or Jenny, could you go in just maybe briefly? I think Gladys was somewhat asking on the audit, the outside audit. And is that something you can give a little bit more background on? Because it sounds like there was a dialogue on it. I think it would be helpful, since it is something we need to spend money on. It's nice to have the backing of the value of it, because it sounds like it's an important thing that you guys have come up with. So I view that as valuable information.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, so sure. So the external auditor came out of community feedback, and some of, as we said, we added about 20 something other members. And so that was something that was important to a large constituent group. And so it was something that we added. And the purpose is to do more of an equity needs assessment. Where are we at and where can we go, right? So a lot of what's in the equity plan is saying what we would like to do. The auditor would be the person to, work with the community, work with central administrators, and do this equity walks. There's various tools that auditors use, and just give you a needs assessment and then state, where are the areas that you can grow in, and helps to then strengthen the plan that we have already created.
So is it something that gets followed up with, or is it a general audit? We get the audit and then the committee works from there, and then maybe in a couple of years you do another audit to see how you're doing? Is that how often do you usually want to do that?
I think it's going to be up to the equity team, but I think, right, the initial audit will go to the equity team to say, here are the needs, here's the areas that you can, continue to grow in. And I believe that they will be able to then update the plan. And then since it's a multi-year plan, if that, 2 years they want an auditor to come back, that, that would be something that they would include, but it would have to be a conversation with that group.
Thank you.
And go ahead, Christian.
No, first off, Jenny and April and Leon, who's not on the call, but thank you so much for this work. It is abominable work. It's intimidating work. And just thank you, Sam, for chiming in with that, because I think you guys caught it right there. It's just another tool in the toolbox. It is not a mandate. It is an opportunity to get an outside perspective and then bring that back to the table, and then look at it from a collaborative process and see what can we move forward with. And I think when we talk about a needs assessment for the district, that's exactly what it is. And can the DET play a role in that? They already are. Absolutely, they are. But I just want to caution everyone from the loud voices in the rooms and the conversations that come about just from the idea of the DET coming together. This is good work. It's work that's supported by the district. And the idea of an equity audit is just another tool for people to gauge where we are and how we can move forward. It doesn't supersede anyone's input, particularly the DET, but it's a useful tool that the DET and the superintendent could use. So again, thank you for bringing that into play, Sam.
And I'll just add my thanks as well. And you know, there are a lot of examples of district equity audits that are out there to look at, which I think might be good to get a perspective on what
Rob, I think your connection's a bit unstable.
Rob, maybe try turning off your video and try talking
some
again.
leverage to the district equity team. It's a, you know, a dedicated sorry.
Thank you.
Apologies. So it was a quick thank you and then just a recommendation. There are a lot of examples available to look at other equity plans as a means to sort of provide leverage to the volunteer group that's doing the work.
Okay, I want to try, did everybody understand what was being said?
That's a negative.
I am going to try to restate it, but I'm not quite sure I caught all of it also, Rob. There might have been some feedback from maybe mics that weren't muted as you spoke. That the DET, that you'd like to see samples and examples of equity audits, so we know, you know, the type of work, because there's a variety of equity audits out there. There are a variety of approaches, and the importance of involving the DET in that work going forward. Do I have that essentially right?
Yes, more or less. And I apologize. I'll send a follow-up note because I know the connection is not good. Sorry.
No worries. I see your follow-up note that just says added my support, and there are lots of examples, and it's a positive for the DET. It provides leverage. Thank you for that, Rob. Much easier to understand what was written as opposed to what was the bad connection, but thank you. Okay. Yep.
So I just want to say that to the community, this is what a conversation looks like. This is what the dialogue looks like. No hidden agendas. There's nothing to do with that. We are having a conversation on equity and what the district equity team is doing and the work that's involved. And this is what we need to continue to do as a community. So with that, Rena, please take the stage.
Rena, I have one just last thing that came to my mind. For April and Jenny as co-chairs and consultant, maybe one discussion in the future, and now that we can see this external auditor appears necessary, if any of the members of the community or the organization that join the DET can support us or kind of sponsor this auditor. They don't be only an effort for the district. Like they support them from ideas, but support also in the financial way, how we can maybe cross that one of the meetings because we have organizations that join the DET, how they can support this need.
Thanks, Gladys. Yeah, that's something we would have to discuss. I think, the audit, there are limits as to what can be fundraised for. I don't believe that we go out and ask for contributions for auditors, for example, and we want to ensure that it was, in fact, an independent auditor, and that there was no confusion as to who in fact was doing the audit and the type of audit, but it's certainly something that we can discuss. And I do think that it is important for the DET to be involved in the work of any audit. And I do want to emphasize that the importance of amplifying the voices of our staff who really live this each and every day and see what's going on and have put some of that input into this report. It seems, based on other districts that I've seen where I've read some of the things that the audit reports, it's interesting. It seems, and I could have this wrong, so jump in, Jenny and April, and tell me if I'm incorrect here, that a lot of equity audits are the starting point for the work in developing the plan for a district as to how to move forward. In our case, we have the benefit of having this incredible document, an incredible plan. So we are actually several steps ahead when we're talking about an equity audit and a work plan.
Well, and I think that that's why, we will all vet different organizations to use. There are also some equity audits where people have them, districts will have them target specific areas, so I think in our case, what would probably be most helpful is, to stick to our priority areas as, ways, a lens in, so that we're not necessarily starting from scratch, but we're using things that we already have, that we are saying are our priority, that are the things that we really care about.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that. I think that the biggest thing for Mamaroneck and a lot of places, now that I'm doing this work regionally and also in some ways statewide, because this is the work right now, is setting the example, because they are embodied as a district. You're taking on the work and you're not having a group come in and say, here's the audit and we're going to fix it for you. And when the group leaves, then the issues still are there because you haven't empowered your staff and your community and your students to really do the lift. So by having this plan, and you have community folks on there, you have dedicated staff, you have student voices, this is going to be something that is going to be sustainable. And that's the biggest word that's important here. It needs to be sustainable. We don't want to roll back. It's something that we're going to keep moving forward. And so setting the example in this way is very powerful as a district. And many times people, who are doing equity work, plenty of districts are attempting to do this work now in various parts of the state, as I mentioned, and they know that there is the strategic plan that Mamaroneck has on their page. It's not just a list of goals. It says, this is what we're going to do to get there, and it's transparent. So I think it's important to recognize that you are being a leader in this work, and can be looked at not just as a state thing, but nationally, because most school districts now are doing this. And we're seeing national policies, we're seeing state policies. So this is very important. And I'm happy that we're sticking to it and working all of the kinks out, because that's how systems and democratic systems work. We got to talk about it. We got to, it's uncomfortable, but it's needed. And so, kudos to the district for pushing through.
And I just want to add, and thank you, April, for that. I appreciate that perspective. I also want to just make mention and give note to the work that's been ongoing at our schools, from our staff and administrators in terms of propelling our professional learning and honest conversations. And so our effort also is to, in some ways, publicize and make visible the many examples at the school level within faculty, study as well, professional development, that complements the plan and really supports as far as the day-to-day commitment to, one, learn as an adult about where we are today and assess and reflect upon to help move forward, and then contribute to the work and the dialogue as a broader community. So part of our effort as a school system is to publicize, really the breadth of those professional experiences and how they really infuse the day-to-day experience of teachers and students as well. And so I'm hoping that this will support the plan, will provide an opportunity for us to describe more of what's happening in our schools and how it relates to this, the overarching plan.
Thank you, Bob. I was hoping, and I should have done this previously, I have a statement of commitment from the board. I don't know if it's possible to put it up as a screen share. I just emailed it to you, Bob, and Annie to see if there was any way to put it up there. And I would love, as we get down to the bullets, 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 6 bullets, for each board member to take one of the bullets. I'll read the beginning part. And again, apologies for not sending this sooner.
I've got it. Would you like me to share my screen? Oh, Bob got it. Okay.
Okay. I'll read the beginning and then I'll turn it over to board members. I guess we'll take it in alphabetical order, guys. That'll be the simplest. The board, in crafting this, we felt it was very important to demonstrate in the district equity plan and in the work plan for this year. So with that, the Mamaroneck Board of Education reaffirms that racism, discrimination, and marginalization of any people or groups of people have no place in our schools, our district, or our community. As part of the board's mission to provide safe, welcoming, and affirming spaces for all students, staff, families, and community members, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, religion, sexual identity or orientation, ability or disability, country of origin, or any other identity, category, or characteristics, and equitable, inclusive, and diverse opportunities for all students to reach their highest potential. The board hereby commits to
systemic improvements of policies, programs, and practices to create culturally responsive learning and working environments that expect and support high academic achievement for students from all racial groups, where differences will not just be seen as strengths, but nourished, celebrated, and welcomed, because they are what make students and families unique. And
I'll go. C before B, right, Ariana? That's okay, though. That's all right.
I went first name, sorry.
Oh, first name. Okay. That's okay. Undertake sustained learning to develop a deeper understanding of student experiences, disparities, and academic outcomes for students of color and economically disadvantaged students, and the barriers to achieving the priorities outlined in the DET strategic plan. And
Okay. And establishes a policy on equity, inclusivity, and diversity in education that furthers the priorities of the strategic plan and
work in a collaboration with the DET during the current school year to revise policies such as the code of conduct that have been identified by the DET as barriers to providing equitable, inclusive, and diverse opportunities. And
Rob. I'll read for Rob. Review and revise district systems and structures to ensure equity and access for all students with an intentional focus on supporting our most vulnerable learners. And
address the budgetary needs to achieve the equity priorities set forth in the strategic plan during the 2021-2022 school budget process.
Thank you. And with that, if there are no further comments, and sorry, board, you had no idea that I was going to do that because I actually didn't have any idea I was going to do that. I want to move to our policy 1230, public participation at board meetings.
Rena,
Yes.
Rob did just chat out that please know that the DET has my full support for their important work.
Thank you, Christian. We shall announce, okay, now's the opportunity for public comment. Anyone who wishes to speak may state their first and last name and any organization they're representing. Any group or organization wishing to address the board must identify a single spokesperson. The board will not permit in public session comments involving individual district personnel or students. Persons wishing to discuss matters involving individual district personnel or students should present their comments and/or concerns to the superintendent of schools during regular business hours. All speakers are to conduct themselves in a respectful and civil manner. Obscene language, libelous statements, threats of violence, and statements advocating racial, religious, or other forms of prejudice will not be tolerated. Questions concerning matters which are not on the agenda may be taken under consideration and addressed at a subsequent board meeting. We will try to respond to questions that could be answered simply and very briefly. Otherwise, we will be following up with longer responses. The board vests in its president or other presiding officer the authority to terminate the remarks of any individual when the individual does not adhere to the established rules. What we've been doing is I've given people a warning and they have gone back, amended their comments or statement, and they come back for a second try in the time allotted to them to make such a comment. With that, Debbie Minetta is going to be handling the chat. Do you want to let us know if there are any individuals who are
I
looking?
sure will. I do not see any hands raised at this time. Oh, here we go. Andreen Smith would like to ask a question.
Okay.
Andreen?
Hi, good night, everyone. This is Andreen Smith. I'm a parent. It's not so much a question. I wanted to just say I really appreciated hearing that statement. I think it was very powerful and meaningful. Obviously, I'm sure you guys will send it out so we can get a chance to review it more in depth. But just in terms of what I heard and saw just now, I thought it was very good, especially the pieces focusing on sustained learning to understand barriers and then addressing budgetary needs to address equity priorities within the strategic plan. And just wanted to echo the statements made by April and others regarding the work of the DET, that a substantial portion of us did feel it was necessary to do some sort of external review to figure out where we are as a starting point so that we can begin to address ongoing concerns that have been raised within the district. So I just wanted to share my appreciation to the board for that work on the statement and then also for the DET as well.
Thanks very much, Andreen. We do not have any other individuals who would like to comment or ask a question at this time. We can wait a minute or two. Actually, now we have Family Ties of Westchester.
I'm sorry, I was just coming off of a meeting, but I'm not Family Ties of Westchester. My name is Leilani Isa Reed. My apologies for representing as Family Ties, which I am not at this moment. I am representing myself as a community member, a graduate of Mamaroneck School District, and also a member of the DET Equity Committee. I thank everybody who has had an opinion about and who has put in hard work, especially Jenny, Leon, and April, who have done amazing work to gather and to produce this wonderful document. Because I think it is important. I think the school district has a long way to go in regards to this work that has not been done. And I want to emphasize that it has not been really done. There have been efforts, and I don't want to say that the efforts haven't gone unnoticed, but it has not been done into its entirety. I believe that having the outside auditor, just like Ms. Smith has stated, and it has been stated within the document. I believe that an outside auditor only holds us accountable to the work that we are doing. And as much as we are passionate about the work, we still need an outsider to hold us accountable. And we want people to hold us accountable because sometimes we do slip up and sometimes things get in the way, and that's just life. But I thank everybody for their time. I thank the board for doing what they're doing, but I encourage everybody to stay focused at the task at hand because times are changing and we do not need to fall behind. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Let's wait another minute or two.
Rena, there's a comment in the chat.
I think the question is, I think this is related to the, it's a comment from Ashley Matlow. Ashley, if you want. Ashley, sorry, I was muted. Ashley, if you want to pop in to raise your hand so Debbie can call on you, because I want to be sure I understand your question, and it's much better coming from you than for me to restate it.
Okay, here is Ashley. Hello.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for all of this valuable information. I was actually just curious if, in terms of an outside source, being that outside voice or consultant, if that's something that could be done by the community instead of using the school's funds to pay someone else to do it. The community is really looking for a way to step in with both the budget, with everything. And with the cuts that we're even thinking about making, I feel like to spend that money for someone else to evaluate what our community can band together and do together instead of having to cut, children's activities because we don't have enough money for them. Like, we just need new, more creative ways of making these things happen. I feel like that's just my opinion. I don't know. I don't know the actual costs. I haven't looked at the actual costs. I would love to see, those specific budget lines of, what we've paid. And I know that's part of the process for any school district. My mother was a teacher on Long Island for my whole life. So I'm familiar with that, but I just would like to know if there's other ideas being considered in terms of cost and the initial outlay of the money that we're trying to save, really, because if we're having to cut all these activities, shouldn't we be looking at more resourceful ways of using the money that we do have? I support all of this and I think it's wonderful. I'm just saying, is there a cheaper way for us to make sure that it's done the right way? And maybe that might be involving the community. It was just an idea, but that's it, really.
Thanks, Ashley. I just want to jump in and say, this is something that's all going to be considered in connection with the budget process. Our goal as a board is to align our resources with our priorities. And this is clearly one of our priorities. So it's not a question of taking away from something in order to do something else, although I'm sure there will be choices down the road. But it is a question of aligning our resources with our priorities. As I said earlier, that's something that the board has consistently said over the years, and the superintendent. So I would encourage you and everyone else to stay tuned and be involved in the budget process when everyone can get a fuller view of where we are as a district.
Okay, thanks very much, Ashley. Now we're going to move on to Shannon Purdy. Shannon? Hello?
Shannon is muted. She has to unmute. All right, you want to go on to the next person and go back to Shannon?
There is nobody else at this time.
Who is Elise Chan? Her name is popping up on the screen.
Okay, Moran just raised her hand. So
Okay.
let's go to Moran.
Great.
Hi, everyone. I just had a quick question about the workshops that you're proposing to give on the 11th. I'm really excited to hear everything you have to say, and really looking forward to the insights that you will offer. And I noticed that the Board of Education and PT Council will be offered a workshop on one evening, and then the community will have another opportunity on a different evening. Is there an opportunity for teachers and staff to be able to see something like this? And do you anticipate that happening sooner or down the line? That's it.
Thanks, Moran.
I don't know if we wanted to give an answer. Obviously, we do want staff to participate and have the opportunity to join. And so we can kind of consider in our meeting schedule how to include as many of our faculty and staff members as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Moran.
It looks like this is it. No more comments or questions.
Okay, with that, I'm going to move along to future business. And just to reiterate, we will be sending out a follow-up to this meeting, including a link to the slides, a link to this meeting, and we will also provide the community with information about how they can donate towards the cost of desks and the shields.
Rita, we did have one question on that in the chat, and it was just to clarify, are we ordering enough for K through 12 or just K through 5 at this time was the question pre-donation?
Are we talking about desks or are we talking about shields?
Shields, I believe, was the question. Perhaps desk too.
Yeah, the question I saw was, we're ordering just for MAS for the other elementary schools. We're ordering everything for all the elementary schools. We have not yet ordered for the middle and high school.
Thank you, Sylvia. With
Rena,
that,
I do see there is one more person that has raised their hand, and that is Shannon Purdy. Do we have time for one more question?
Yep.
Or comment? Shannon?
Hey, hi guys, this is Diana Lovett. Sorry, I don't know why it's showing up as Shannon. And I'm a parent here in the district. Thank you, April, for all your hard work. And I just wanted to echo what Christian and April and Rena said about the importance of an external equity auditor. And I think from a perspective of rebuilding some trust with the community and having this be fair and impartial and quantifiable. It's very important that we work with an outside organization. And I think so we can benchmark our success, or challenges over time. It's very important to do that. And just kind of reacting to the person who suggested we use community, I think it's a really interesting idea, but just as we collaborate with or work with external auditors, On the financials, I think we want people who have sophisticated knowledge and tools and experience to do this type of work so that we get a very accurate understanding of where we are and the progress thus far. So just wanted to kind of echo and add my voice of support for that proposal and that perspective.
Thanks, Diana. Okay, we are going to move along to future business, upcoming meetings. Tuesday, February 23rd, Board of Education meeting. The topic is the HOMIC schedule update. Tuesday, March 2nd at 7 p.m., Board of Education study session. The topic will be the presentation of the superintendent's 21-22 budget. And March 16th, Board of Education meeting. It will be additional discussion of the budget. Meetings will continue to be held remotely. If the executive order is not extended, the meetings will be held in McLean Auditorium at Mamaroneck High School with appropriate social distancing. With that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So move, Paul.
Second, Ariana.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, LMC. And thank